All right. All right. So welcome to another class. And in this class, we'll be starting with what? Control flow for making decisions. So we'll be talking about all of these things today. Then we'll move into functions. And if there's still time, we'll talk about arrays and objects. So first of all, let us go into control flow. What do we mean by control flow? You have a question? Eh? That's what I'm talking about. Control flow. So we'll move into control flow first. So for making decisions. Now, what do we mean by control flow? Now, let us introduce ourselves into control flow. When we talk about control flow in programming, not just JavaScript, we're talking about decision making. We're talking about making decisions of conditions. You understand? So what am I saying? I'm saying that certain decisions will be executed based off of user interaction. So what am I saying? So for instance, if I input my password, right? I want certain things to happen. Now, what do I want to happen? Is either users, sorry, if a user inputs their password, I want certain things to happen. Now, what do I want? Is either I reject the password for being incorrect, or what? I accept the password for the password being correct, so you can easily log in. So we have Facebook as an example. If I press the wrong password, what happens? It tells you incorrect password, isn't it? But if you're not pressing the correct password, it automatically logs you in. Now that is control flow, meaning that you are making decisions, but that decision is based off of what? The user interaction, what the user does. You understand? Now that is basically what control flow is. And in control flow, you have what we know as what? Conditional statements. I hope everybody understands what control flow is now. Is control flow clear? Is it clear? Are you sure it's clear? Okay, that's basically what it is. So control flow again is basically talking about making decisions based off of what user interaction or user input, or basically making decisions with your code. So if I want something to happen, certain conditions must be met for it to happen. Now, if those conditions aren't met or aren't satisfied, what happens? You're not going to happen. Now, that's what control flow is. Now, under control flow, we now have what we know as what? Conditional statement. Now, what are conditional statements? Looking at those this definition, conditional statements are fundamental building blocks in programming, allowing us to control the flow of execution based on specific conditions. Now, they enable our programs to make decisions, execute different code paths, and what respond dynamically to various inputs. Now, what this is saying is that what? It's basically saying, okay, certain conditions are set. If those conditions are met, what happens? Allow this to happen. So, for instance, if let's say if you are writing a program and you're saying if you are not mathematically sound or if you are not mathematically average, you cannot apply for what's it for a programming class. That's not true. But let's just give an example that if user does not pass this mathematical test, you can't apply for this particular program. Else, you cannot apply. Meaning that if the user is not mathematically sound, he won't be able to apply. That's a condition. What's the condition? Yes, you understand that's the condition. And what is the execution? What's the execution there? The execution is if he is smart, what happens? He can apply. And if he is not, what happens? He can apply. You understand? That is conditions. So you are basically making statements based off of what? Conditional statements. And in conditional statements, we know something as well. We have a lot of conditional building blocks. So for instance, if you check this place, you have if else, if, and what else. Then you have logical operators, which we've talked about. Remember, the and what? The or and not. And or and not. That's also logical. So we'll get there. Then you have the switch statement. You have the ternary operators. Now, these are the four conditional control flow statements that we have, or control flow techniques that we have. But the most popular one is what? The if, else if, and else. Now we're talking about if, else if, and else. Now it's just the name. everything about this conditional statement is basically what you can see and read. Now, if this condition is true, I want something else to happen. What does that mean? It means that, if this condition is true, I want this to happen. Else, if that first condition is not true, something else is going to happen. If else, if I'm already a programmer, I want to be able to move into cloud engineering. If I'm not a programmer, I want to go back to learning programming. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the if statement there is that what if I'm a programmer. The else statement is that what if I'm not a programmer. Do you understand it now? Now those are what if and else. Now, if statement is the first condition. The else statement is the alternate condition in case the first condition does not work. Do you understand it now? That is basically what your if, else if, and else is. Now, what am I saying? Let me give you an example of what I'm saying. So, now let me show you, give you an example. I'm just going to take this out. So let's say, let first number equals to what? 10, right? Then let second number, second number, okay, yeah, equals to 20. You understand? Now, let us now check, let us write a program that checks if first number is greater than second number or second number is greater than first number. Now, if second number is greater than first number, what do we want? We want to print what? Second is greater than first. If first is greater than what? Second, what do we want to print? First is what? Greater than second. So how do we do that? We use what? A conditional statement, your if and else block. So I can say if, can I say it? First number, right, is greater. Remember your greater than sign. Greater than what? Second. Second number. Okay. Now, what do I want? I want to console.log. I want to console.log first number. First number is greater than the second. Do you understand? Now, let me go live and let us see what we have. So if I go live now on HTML, now, what are we going to have? So if you check your console now, what do you have? Okay. Something that I have not. Now, I said what? If first number is what greater than second number. Now, what's the value of first number? 10. Second number is what? 20. Now, I said if first number is greater than second number, what do you want? First number is greater than what? Second. Now, when you check the console, do you see anything? Why? Because 10 is actually not what? Greater than 20. That means the first condition is going to be bypassed. Do you understand it now? That's why we have if else. Now, if I come here now and say else, if second number is now what? Greater than what? First number. What do you want to have? You cannot have what? Console.log second number is greater than what? First number. Do you understand? Now, if you go ahead and you check it out now, you get the second one. Why? Because it has now read the second condition, which is what? Else, if the second number is not greater than what? The first number. Now, let us imagine that this one is now 20. Let's imagine that this is 20. What will happen? Nothing else will happen. Can you see it? Again, why is this not happening? Because the first condition is that what? If first number is what? Greater than the second condition is what? If second number is greater than what? The first. But looking at this, first number equals what? Second number. Do you understand? Meaning that both conditions are what? False. Do you understand it now? Then you can go ahead and create another else if. You cannot have what? Else if first number and second number are what? Equals to each other. So you can have what? First number equals what? Second number. To compare, don't forget your 2 equal sign. Second number. Then you can have what? Console.log. You can have what? Both numbers are equal. Now, if you check it out now, you should have what? Both numbers are equal. Okay. Number. Both numbers. Okay, good. Now you should have what? Both numbers are equal. Do you understand now? This is what your if and else statement means. If, else, if, and else. Now, you might be wondering that, okay, you have if and else if. We've done if and else if. What is now else? Else is just like a default statement that says, okay, if every of your conditions that you've been saying since, if every of them are all false, just go back to the default setting. So, for instance, I can have something like this that, so if first number and second number are equal, what do you want? Both numbers are all equal. Now, imagine that I'm setting this to an empty string. Let us check what's going to happen. First number is greater than the what? Second, okay, it's automatically seeing this as 0, you understand? So that's basically what we're saying that. Okay. But now you have let's first number. Okay. Let me try something else. I'm trying to think of something that we can do now. Okay, instead of having this third one, let us try something like this. Let's say we have 20. Now, we cannot have what else. What do you want? So let's say console.log both numbers are equal. Now, we are basically writing a program that checks if 2 numbers are greater than each other. Now, if both of them now happens to be a number that are not greater than each other, that means they are equal, what happens? It's not going to come out to this default else statement that says what? Both numbers are what? Equal. Now, if you come back and check it out, see that we still have the same thing that we are saying. Both numbers are what? Equal. I hope everybody's getting this. Is it clear? Now, again, I'm going to explain it. You have your if statement. That's your first condition. Your first condition, then you have the output or the result. Then you have your second condition that runs if the first condition is what? False. And you see how conditional statement works. Conditional statements are like, they are basically Boolean. You understand? If your condition is right, what happens? If it is true, it works. If it is false, what happens? It moves to the next condition. And then it checks if that condition is true or false again. And then that's how the circuit keeps going. Now, for another question that you might be asking in your head, you can have your else if statement as many times as you want. as many times as what as you need. If you notice, I was having about 2 else if before. You understand? But I had to change it to what else because since the last one is going to be like a default statement, I don't really need else if again. Do you understand it now? Now that this is basically how your if, else if, and else block basically works. Hope everybody understands. This clear to everybody. Star Wizard. Are you sure you're following? So now this is basically what your if, else if, and else if is talking about. So moving on. Now the if statement executing code. Now the if statement is the most basic form of what? Conditional statement. It allows you to what? Execute a code or block only if a specified condition is true. Like I said, now if this condition is true, this code is going to be executed. If the condition is now false, it is going to move on to what? The next one, which is going to be your what? Else if. Your else or your else if. You understand? The else if is just like another condition. Your else, the difference between your else if and else is that else if is another condition. Your else is now saying that if all the conditions are not what? True, the else is having to get printed out. So the else doesn't really carry a condition, as you can see. So the else statement executing when all the conditions are what? False. So it doesn't really carry a condition. The only condition is that what? The rest have to be what? False. If they are false, the else gets printed out. Do you understand that? That is basically what your else is all about. Now, I'm going to come again. You have your if, which is the first statement. You have your else if, which is like the next condition. In case the if is what? False. Then you can have as multiple else if, depending on the amount of conditions you want to have. Right? Now, in case all those conditions are what? False, what happens? The else block gets outputted. Do you understand that? Now, this is basically what your if statement is talking about. Now let us try something else. So let us say we have this. So let us check for a condition. So let us set a boolean, right? Let's check if it is raining or it is actually there's sunshine. You understand? So let us say it's raining. So let's have it's raining, and we set it to what? True. Now let us have sunshine. And let us set it to what? False. Do you understand? Which one is true? Raining, right? Sunshine is false. Now let us say if it is actually raining, what do you want? You want it to what? Also carry an umbrella. Else, if the condition is what? Sunshine, what do you want? If that is if sunshine is what? True, what do you want? You want to what? Console the you don't need an umbrella. You understand? Now, if I come here now and I check it out, what am I gonna have? What do you have? Carry an umbrella. Why? Which one is true? It's raining, right? That's the true. That's the one that has the true value. So if you check this one, if you change it to true, now let us check if both conditions are now what? True. Let us see what happens. What do you think is going to happen if both conditions are true? What's going to happen? I can't hear you. Okay, it's not going to print out anything. Who else? Okay. Okay. What about you? Both of them. Nothing, both. Young also both or nothing. Or you have something else. Over it. Nothing. It's going to print out anything. Say it now. It's going to print out what? You got the answer, but you did not get the reason. Now, it is going to print out first reason. Now, you have two major reasons. First reason why it's going to print out carrier and umbrella is because JavaScript executes its code from where? Top to bottom. I've said it before. So it reads your first statement first. And if your first statement is true, which is taking it to the second reason, if your first statement is true, it wouldn't actually care if the other statement is also what? True. It's only going to what? Print out the first one. So if you check it out now, what exactly are we going to have? So if you see, we have what? Carrier and umbrella. Why? Because carrier and umbrella is also true. This particular one is also what? True. Now, if I move sunshine up, what's going to happen? Sunshine is not going to be what? Okay, that's not the problem. If I change here now to what? Sunshine, and I change it to it's raining, what are we going to have? We're not going to have what? You don't need an umbrella. Oh. Okay, I did not change the right. That's true. All right, but you understand what I'm trying to say. So we now have what? Carrier and umbrella. Do you get? So having carrier and umbrella now means that what? Sunshine now comes first, basically because of what we know as what? Hoisting. So there's something we know as hoisting, and we're going to get there. So basically, how JavaScript treats is its elements is that it picks the first one. As long as the value is given what? A truthy value, what happens? It's going to what? Execute that code first. The only reason why it's not going to execute it is if that value is what? False. Do you understand it now? So that is why you need to understand how ordering works in JavaScript. Do you have a question? As long as both of them are false, nothing will get. So let's try it. So if you have what? False, and then you also have what? False. What will happen? Both of them will not output anything. Do you understand? So both numbers are equal. This was actually output. It's not going to output anything. Full block. Now that is what we know as what how synchronism in JavaScript, like how elements will arrange each other from top to bottom. So you understand? No, this one doesn't matter. I can bring this one down now, and it still doesn't matter. What still gets printed out is what? So let us try it. Let's try it. Let's change to true, and let us change this to also true. So as you can see, again this is a variable. Your variable is your sunshine variable is up. Your raining variable is up. Is down. But your raining is what? The condition for raining is what? The first condition. The second condition is what? Sunshine, which means what comes first is what? Carrier and umbrella. You understand it now? It is condition. It's actually condition based and not exactly variables. Your variable, this thing doesn't matter. Although it matters in some places, but that's when you now get to what? Hoisting and scoping rather. So you have what we call as because you have three types of scope. You have your global scope, you have your function scope, and then you have your local scope, block scope. So when we get to that, I'll definitely explain what scope means. All right. So yes. So now that is basically one thing about if and else. Like I said, your if statement is the first condition, else if comes next, then you now have your what? Your else. You now have your what? Your else. So let us have something. Now let me explain this part again. So we have important considerations for else if. So you have the other matters. So the conditions are, like I said, everybody's here. The conditions are what evaluated in the order they appear. Just like I explained. So if you have your first condition, yeah, it executes that one first. So if that one is true, forget about your other condition. You understand? So once a condition is true, the corresponding code block is executed, and the remaining else if and else blocks are what skipped. Therefore, it is not important to order your conditions logically. Now, exclusivity. The else if structure implies that the conditions are what mutually exclusive. Only one of the code blocks will be executed. So if you have your else, if you have your only one of those what code blocks will be executed. And which one is going to be executed? No. Which one will be executed? Eh? The truth one, right? The one that the condition is what? True. Is everybody following? Are you sure everybody's following? Anything that is true is correct. I don't think I understand the question. Your if is what? If A is what? Greater than good. Now if A is greater than 25, print out true. Else, if A is not greater than, that's it wasn't bring out false. It's going to bring out false because the false condition is what? True. If it's not, it's not actually checking for the beyond value. It is checking for if that condition is what? True or false. So just like I explained in our last class, your code might output false, but the condition is what? True. I think I did it in the last class on one example. So it actually output false, but the code itself is what? True. That's the condition is true. Then you now have your what? Your optional else. Now your else is not always important. So, but it is your final block, and basically I call it the default block. Default block in the sense that if no condition is now what? True, it defaults to this particular what? Else block. Do you understand it now? So now that is basically how it works. So, well, this is basically nesting if statements. Now, we can nest statement inside of another statement. Like for instance, we can nest an if statement in another if statement. So, for instance, let us check this example. We say says let age equals what? 25, and let us license equals what? True. Now, if age is greater than or equals to 18, what do you want? Console.log, you are old enough to drive. If as license, that means, and what is as license here? Now, if as license, what do you want? You are allowed to drive. Else, you need a driver's license to what? To drive. Now, else, console.log, you are not old enough. Now, what this page is saying is that what? In just one particular if statement, it is checking for what? As license. You understand? And it's also checking for the what? The age. Now, you can only have a driver's license if you are what? Older than 18. 18 or older than 18. You understand? Now, that is why it is inside the what? 18. Do you get? So, in some conditions, what is this trying to say? In some conditions actually, you have to put them in the same if block because why? They actually satisfy the same condition. Now, what am I saying? Having driver's license means that what? You are satisfying the condition of older than 18, right? Then, apart from that, you being older than 18 to drive, you being older than 18 also satisfy the condition of what? You are older than 18. Do you understand now? Now, that's basically what this is saying. So, sometimes you can actually have nested if statements inside of each other. Now let me just write it out so you can see what I'm saying. So the example that we have there, what we have is what if age is equal to let age equals to what 25, or let's say 25. Do you understand? Now, then we cannot say let driver's license or let license or as license equals to true. Now, then I said if age, right, is greater than or equals to what? 18. What do you want? Console.log the ordinance drive. So now, as you can see, else, you can just come here and say what? Else. Come in. Else, we have what? Console.log. You are not what? You are not old enough to drive. Now, this is like a typical way of saying, okay, you're just checking. Now, what happens to this license? Do you go ahead and create another what? E-block and to check for the license? You can do that. But you can now, instead of doing that, sometimes you're having two different what? You can combine those conditions into what? One conditional code block. Now, you can combine those two conditions into one conditional code block. Why? Because they actually satisfy the same, you actually have the same end goal. In the sense that if you don't have driver's license, you can't drive. Right? And if you are not older than what? 18, you can't also what? Drive. So since they are satisfying the same condition, what happens? It is easier for you to put them in the same block. Do you get? Now, let's just wait for it. Now, it is printing out you are old enough. Okay. All right. Now, we have what? Age is what? Greater than 18, you are old enough to drive. Else, you are not old enough to drive. Now, we also need to what? Check for what? Driver's license. So we can now check if as what? License. What do you want? Console.log. You are eligible to drive. Else, console.log. You can't touch the wheel. So now, if you check it out now, you should have what? First one, what did you see? You're old enough to drive, get what? Outputted. Then the next one is what? You are eligible to drive. So now, yes. Now, let me now explain some things to you. So you've probably been to websites whereby they ask you questions, right? To answer the first question, the first question actually satisfies what they wanted. But the next question, you probably answer, they tell you, sorry, you are not eligible for this offer. Do you understand? So let me give another example. So for instance, you're on Facebook. Okay, good. If you are creating an account of Facebook, you have to be, I think you have to be 18. 18, 18, right? Good. Now they will first of all ask you for your what? For your name. If that first form field passes their what? Their validation, they passes their requirement, they validate you, isn't it? That means you can input your name and your surname and your phone number and pass their validation. Now, if you're now below 18, what happens? It's going to tell you that sorry, you cannot create an account on Facebook. That's basically what it's trying to say. So you have how many conditions in that under one code block now? Two. First condition was checks for your name. Another condition checks if you are what? Older than 18. Now looking at this here, you have what? You are old enough to drive. But now let us say you have what? It is false here. So let's have this place as false. What is he going to say? He's going to print out what? You can't what? Touch a steering. Yes, we know that you are old enough to drive, but you can't go ahead to what? Drive the car. Do you get it now? Because you have to what? Have a license. The license is like proof that you actually what? Gone to a driving school. Do you get it now? Now, this is basically what nesting means in with your if and else statement. That's basically what it means. You don't understand? Now, the whole code block here, right, is about car. So basically what we're trying to say is about driving. I'm answering your question. Just a moment. I want you to understand what the whole code block is all about. The whole code block is all about what? Driving. Do you understand? Now, what you are saying now is that this particular else should be part of this one. Is that what you are saying? Exactly what I'm trying to say. Now, I'm saying that if age is now greater than 18, consider of what? You are old enough to drive. Else, if the age is less than 18, what happens? You are not old enough to drive. So you see that I cannot be inside this place, outside. Let me show you what I'm trying to say. Let me remove this so you understand what I'm saying. Point is, if age is greater than 18, consider of you are old enough to drive. That is the first condition, right? Now, shouldn't you also have a condition in case age is less than 15, less than 18? Now that's this condition. Do you get it now? Now, in this place, you now want to also check if the person has a what? A driver's license. Alternatively, I can come out here and say what? I can come here and say if what? Has license. Do you understand? If has license, what do I want? Console.log. Sorry. Console.log. You can drive a car. Right? And then you have your what? Else, isn't it? Console.log. You can touch that car. Now, what have you just done? We created two separate function, conditional block, isn't it? The first one checks for what? Age. Second one checks for what? License. Do you understand it now? Now, this particular age is saying if you are older than 18, you are old enough to drive. But if you are not, what happens? You should not touch that car. You cannot drive because you are not old enough to drive. Now, in this place, we're now having what? If you now have what? License, you can drive a car. But if you don't have a license, you can't touch a car. Now, what is it going to print out? You can't touch a car. Why? Because you don't have license. It's false. Now, if you check here, let's check it out. You can't touch that car. Now, what I'm now trying to tell you now is this particular license is under what? Driving. Since you have one particular function, and that is to know if somebody can drive a car or not, what do? You can easily nest those conditions in the same code block. So I can have my what? If age is equals to what? If age is greater than what? 18, console.log, you are old enough to drive. Inside this same particular what code block, I can now also have the condition for what? As license. So I can say if this same person is one person, right? If this same person, because right now, what you're trying to do is you're trying to create two separate what functions for different people. But now, if this same person now has what? Has license. Yes, you know the person is older than 18. But if this same person now has license, what do you want? You want what? You can now what? Drive a car. Do you get it now? Else, if this person does not have a license, what do you want? You want this particular what? Function here. Do you get it? Now, that's basically saying that what you're trying to nest elements, or you're trying to nest conditional statement in the same code block. I hope everybody gets it now. Do you understand it? Are you sure you understand it? Don't tell me yes if you don't understand it. Do you understand it? Mr. Soe, do you understand it? Is it clear? Yes or no? And if it's no, what don't you understand? Like, what do you still have issue with? The else is a condition in case it does not work. So the else is like a default output in case the if does not work. That's what else is. So right here now, I understand your major issue. Right here now, you're saying that means if this does not work, you should actually have put this else. That's what you're saying. But you should also note the condition that is here. What's the condition here? That means the major condition in this place is what? What's the major condition in this if block? Exactly. That's the major condition. Yes, forget the other this inside of this place. The major condition here is what? The age. Now, if this particular age is now what? Less than what? Let's say 12. Let's say 12. What are we going to get? You're not old enough to drive. It's not even going to worry about the what? The license. Because it automatically says that, okay, if you are under 12, what happens? You should not even have a license. If you are under 18, you should not have a license. But if I bring this code block out now, this particular license out now, you are still going to see the license code. Why? You're going to see the license code. Why? Because right now, you're not giving your computer to think for you. And under 12, under 18-year-old person should not have a license. Right? But why are you still seeing this license code here? Do you understand it now? That's exactly why this license code has to be inside of this place. Why? Because it's in the same code block. Now, this person is now 12. He's not going to assume that somebody that is under 18 should not have what? A driver's license. Do you get it now? Now, which means the major code here is what? The age. You understand? That is the major code here. Now, the else block is not going to get executed in case this particular age does not work. But if this age works, then it's not going to touch this else at all, but touches everything that what is inside this what if, including the as license. Do you get it now? So if I change this to 18 now, it's not going to touch the one in this particular. So you don't tell me that okay, you are old enough to drive, but still you cannot touch that car because I don't have a driver's license. Do you get it now? All right. So this is basically what you have in your if, else if, and else block. Now, this is one of the easiest conditional statements to understand because trust me, if and else if and else statements, they are interesting to use. You just need to understand their basics. You can do anything with them. Basically anything. Now, one nesting is what possible. Deeply nested conditions can become difficult to read and maintain. Consider alternative approaches such as using logical operators to combine conditions or breaking down the logic into smaller and manageable functions. Now, what he's saying is that if you actually nest elements a lot, you will definitely see nesting when we get to some deep aspect of JavaScript, probably like APIs. So if you nest elements a lot, why am I saying elements? If you nest conditions a lot, you might run into some errors. Why? Because if you need to know why you're nesting. For instance, now in this case, you know why you're nesting. You're nesting because you don't want somebody that is under 12 to have a what? A driver's license. Sorry, under 18 to have a driver's license. You understand? But in some cases, you're just nesting, you have issues. So you have alternative approaches like what? Logical operators, which we did in our last class. Logical operators. So instead of using nesting, we can say if this and this is true, what do you want? Now let me show you what I'm trying to say. Let me show you an alternative way of getting this with what? With your AND operator. So we can have what? Let what? Age equals what? 18. Then we can have what? Let as license equals what? True. Right? Now we can have an if statement that says if what? Age is greater than or equals to what? 18. Right? And as license. What do you want? You can just say console.log. You are old enough and eligible to drive. Else, you can now have what? Console.log. That's console.log. You can't drive a car. Now, if you check it out, what is going to happen? You are old enough and what? Eligible to what? To drive. Do you understand it now? Now, this is cleaner than this. Cleaner and much more shorter than this. Now, you cannot have multiple distance. Now, instead of having else here, I cannot have an LC. Now, this LC cannot check if he is older than 18 and does not have a what? A driver license. So what am I saying? So let's say else if age is what? Greater than or equals to what? 18. Now, how do I get not? Does not have a driver license. Let me just show you. So if it's greater than 18 and does not have a license. So I can have create this and I can say console.log. You are old enough to drive, but you don't have a license. Now, what has just happened here? I said if age is greater than what? 18 and has license, that means this license is true, isn't it? What do you want? Console.log, you are old enough and eligible to drive. Now, else, if age is also what? Greater than or equals to what? 18. And you also what? You do not have license to drive. Now, what is the not here? Remember in our last class, I made mention of three major operators, logical operators. First one is your and. Second one is your or. And the third one is what? Not. So this not is saying that what? No driver's license. That means it's going to be the opposite of driver's license. It's going to be what? False. But what's going to get outputted here? What do you think is going to get outputted here? And eligible to drive, right? Because why this is still what? True. Now let us check it out and let us see. So you are old enough and what? Eligible to drive. Now let us change this place to what? False. And let's see what we have. They've changed it to false. Now what do you have? You are old enough to drive, but you don't have a what? You don't have a license. So this is basically how you can do the same thing. You understand? But you can do it cleaner with what? With logical operators. Your and, your or, and your what? Not. Now, those three things are very, very, very important. You can actually do anything. I'll be clear to everybody. Is it clear? Are we sure it's clear? so that I don't move on and bring it back to it. Is it clear to everybody? It's like so clear. Are you clear? Miss Joy, is it clear? Mr. Samuel, okay. Mr. Celestine, is it clear? All right, so we'll move on. Move on to the next one. But before then, let me give us time to write and try and understand what we've done. So you can also still write this one if you want. Let me uncomment it. Okay, I don't actually have to uncomment. You can write it if you want to write it. So let me stop recording and then actually everybody needs to write it. Don't, if